Everybody doing? Did you make it through the first breakout? Try not to put you to sleep. So, yeah, just a little bit about workstations in general. As you all know, workstations really have to be reliable, robust. They are intended for mission-critical applications, as we've talked about. But on top of that, what we really strive to do with our workstations is achieve a real high level of ease of use, get simplicity. What I like to say is we shroud complexity with simplicity, and also what I call the 3 A's of the ZDNA. We've talked about the ZDNA. Well, what is that? The way I look at it is appearance, it's accessibility, and acoustics, achieving low acoustics. And that, on top of all the robustness and reliability, really help us achieve a leadership in the workstation business. So as we look at the back of the Z1, you can see that ZDNA, that appearance. I think someone said earlier that this looks very much like a Z800 side panel, and that was intended. So you have the handle here, which helps with moving the system. Along the back, we've got standard VESA mounting. This panel here pops off, exposing the standard VESA mount. That allows you to hook it or connect it to any type of display arm, standard display arms in the industry, which we see as something that will be used. Along the bottom here, you'll have an array of ports. In addition to the obvious power connection, we have 4 USB 2 ports. We have audio line in, audio line out, and also a subwoofer out. So, as you might imagine, from what you've seen so far, is we did place quite a bit of attention on audio capability with this.
Excuse me, are those analog and optical?
Ones I just mentioned are analog. We do have an SPDIF optical output as well. And we also have a display port. And the display port which we've implemented is really unique in what we've done. It's both an input and an output through a single connector, and it's auto-sensing. So what that allows a user to do very easily is connect a second display. So you'll have your Z1 and a second display, or it allows another system to drive the Z1 display. So that was something that we thought would really help out our users if they ever wanted to use this as just a display and not a workstation. Okay, as we turn this around, let's take a look at the side ports. So our easy access ports, and we have headphone out and audio input here. We have 2 USB 3 ports, and those are identified by the blue tabs if you're familiar with USB 3, so 2 high-speed USB ports. Then we have a media card reader, a 4-in-1 media card reader, right here on the side. And then our optical. We have a choice of optical, either a standard DVD rewriter, or a Blu-ray writer. And I haven't heard it mentioned, but everything, just as our other workstations, is completely configured to order. You can mix and match any hard drive with any processor, with any graphics card. And then also your choice of optical. As we look around the front of the system, we've talked a little bit about audio. We have SRS Premium Sound with this platform, with dual front-facing speakers. And we really like to call that out because if you look at some of the other all-in-ones in the market, they have down-facing speakers, which is extremely inefficient as far as sound goes. What we did is we went through the additional complexity to add 2 front-facing speakers, which really caused the inside of the system to be more constrained, which is why people use down-facing speakers, as it creates more room inside the system. Along the top here, we have a full high-definition webcam, and then on either side of it, there's a microphone array. So it has both sound input, and then your video camera, high definition video up here. So as we take a look at the stand, for instance, I talked about shrouding complexity with simplicity. The stand in the development of the Z1 is probably one of the more complex things that we had to undertake. That's on top of the cooling and all the other things that we had to accomplish here. And this is a perfect example of the complexity. The stand is extremely complex. And I have a couple examples of some early stands that we had up here, and I'll go through those. But basically the stand has a height adjust. It's 100 millimeters height adjust, and then it reclines 30 degrees back or 5 degrees forward. And as you notice, basically those are independent of each other. When I'm moving the height, changing the height, the tilt's not changing. And then one of the other challenges we had, again, because we wanted this to be completely serviceable, is putting it into the recline mode. So another requirement we had with being in recline mode is that it had to lock. And that's so somebody could lift it up without it coming up. And that's very important for shipping. This is the way we ship this platform. And as you might imagine, someone trying to get this out of the box, they pull it out and the screen starts to extend up. It'd be rather difficult to get that out. So unless we were able to lock this down in this position, we would have to use a shipping strap around that, which again adds complexity and just kind of isn't as simple and elegant as what we want. So just take a look at the stand. I mentioned some of the critical elements of the stand, again, are the tilt and the height adjust, and be able to lock it in the reclined position. And this was the first stand that we had developed. And as you can see, it doesn't lock, and so that's a problem. Another problem we had with this stand is that the release mechanism to get it out of that reclined position was toward the back, and it required the user to pull it out sideways, which is very cumbersome. So those are some of the things that we looked at and wanted to change when we move forward. We actually have 4 iterations of these stands. Now here's a very close to final version, and what we can see here is that the stand locks in place, and then it's very easy. We wanted a single button that the user would push to be able to release it. And so that's what we come up with here. That basically releases the stand. And it also, to add robustness, there's pins, 2 pins in front, 2 pins in back, that lock both the upper and lower hinges together. There's also swing arm guides here on either side, and that helps prevent against binding when the stand is moved. So again, the other point of complexity was the spring, getting the spring tension absolutely correct to allow for ease of movement. So again, a very complex piece of machinery that looks very simple and elegant on the outside, and that's our objective, is for that complexity not to be seen by the user. So now as we have it in the recline or service mode, we can open it up and expose the inside, or the inner beauty of the Z1. Cooling this was extremely challenging. As you might imagine, very, very small enclosure, a lot of high performance components inside of here. What we've done is we've divided this up into 4 separate cooling zones. There's a separate independent cooling zone here for the power supply. There's another one right next to it for the graphics. Over here with the hard drive and CPU, the CPUs are under this enclosure here. And then over here we have a blower housing that will cool the memory, and that's the 4th zone. So in total there's 6 fans in this system and 9 thermal sensors, independent thermal sensors distributed throughout. And what those 9 sensors do is control individually the speed of the fans. So we only want to turn the fans only as fast as they need to go. because that cuts down on acoustic levels. And as you look at this, you can see that the fans are actually, most of them are rather large in size. And that's the other objective, is to get larger fans that we can turn slower to move the same amount of air than a smaller fan that you have to run at higher RPM. So again, extremely challenging there. So to go ahead and remove the power supply, there's a connector on the top and the bottom. And then it slides out. The graphics card. Again, we support 4 different video Quadro cards, from the Quadro 500M, 1000M, 3000M, and 4000M graphics cards. And so this is the MXM module right here. The rest of this is our own HP custom designed heatsink. On the end here you can see the cooling fins and these copper heat pipes which distribute the heat and get rid of it. The hard drive area is right here, so we can support either a single 3.5-inch hard drive or two 2.5-inch hard drives in a separate enclosure. They both fit within the same mechanical guide there. And that was another challenge that we had. We knew we wanted to be able to support RAID. To get RAID, you need at least 2 hard drives. So how are we going to fit 2 hard drives in this enclosure? So that was another challenge that we had and succeeded in. So we can go up to 2 terabyte, 3.5-inch hard drives. So that would be the maximum storage capacity. As far as 2.5-inch drives, we support up to 600 gigabyte 10K SATA drives. So 2 of those will get us up to 1.2 gigabyte. And then we also support SSD drives up to 300 gigabyte. This area right here is our CPU cooling area. Behind here, which you probably can't see, we have 3 mini PCI Express slots. These are by 1 slots. And right now what we have is our Bluetooth and wireless networking connected in one of those slots. Right next to the CPU is our 4 memory slots. We could configure this up to 32 gigabytes using 8 gigabyte DIMMs. And these are the same exact memory parts, full-size DIMMs, that are used in our Z210. I didn't mention it, but the other parts, other than the graphics cards, the hard drives are the same components we use in our workstations. The CPUs are the same. The memory's the same. No one's ever been able to pull that off into an all-in-one form factor, particularly the full-size DIMMs. And we needed full-size DIMMs to be able to support ECC, which is why you don't see ECC memory in all-in-ones today. This area here is just a blower housing that comes off. And then the optical drive easily comes in and out as well. And what I'd now like to point out is a couple items that you probably never see unless they were pointed out to you. And again, that's our objective. These are actually, there was a lot of design work that went into these display hinges on the back. There's one here and obviously one on the other side. So basically the requirements for these hinges is they had to basically perform 2 functions. They had to perform a translation as well as a rotation. So the translation really comes into play when you move it up. It moves the display back so that when it moves up in rotation, it doesn't bind against the base pan. So, and the rotation obviously is done to bring it up. And both of those elements have to be done in synchronism. If you can imagine the rotation being out of sync with the translation, you'd get binding, and then other direction you'd get this wild rotation that would be very difficult to use. So what we have is 4 iterations of hinges that we had here. So the first hinge that we came, this is very much like what you might find on one of your cabinets in your homes. The rotation guide here, I've got it taped on here, but that was free floating, and then the translation. You can see how it's very flimsy. The other aspect of this is that it took 4 screws to connect all this together, plus there's some screws and pins in this arm here. Very complex and very difficult to manufacture and get consistency out of. And beside that, it didn't work very well.
Other than that, it was perfect.
To fix that, we kind of went the other direction. This was a 4-bar implementation, which created a lot of stability, and it actually helped keep the rotation and the translation very close together. But you can see there's a dramatic increase in parts here with these bars and these chain-like implementation. That worked very well in prototype. In fact, this is a machine part here. The spring on here was to help with the lift assist. This gas shock here wasn't there until the very end. We tried to implement that lift assist in the hinges themselves. And that just proved to be more complicated than it really needed to be. The next iteration is very close to where we ended up today. And as far as the translation and rotation, you can see that as I move this, the rotation's fixed. So it's really helped out with getting the rotation and the translation and synchronism. You can see very few parts in this. This was an extremely complex design, even though it looks simple, to get all that to work effectively. This area right here, you can see there's a place for a gas shock. So we, in some of the early iterations, we had gas shocks on each of the hinges to help with lift assist. But that created too much complication as well. So with the final version, we added this lift assist here, which is a gas piston. And then this was the final iteration, which basically is the same as this one, except we just strengthen up the lower and upper arms of this to add rigidity to it. Okay, I think that pretty much covers what I wanted to do with the teardown. I did have a couple other examples here of the system blower. You can see this is one of our early versions of it. This is the later version. And really, this functioned just fine when it was in the system. It met our needs, but it was difficult to remove, and it really wasn't too aesthetically pleasing. And again, it has to look good as well as function well. So here's a couple early iterations, or here's one early iteration of our hard drive carrier. This functioned, but it wasn't very robust. You can see it flexes quite a bit, and I just pulled the arm off of it just by doing that. This one's very rigid. Even though it's completely plastic, it's very robust and performs its function in a very elegant manner. These are shock-absorbing grommets to dampen the vibration of the hard drive to help also with acoustics. Okay, with that, we have some time. I just want to thank you for your time here today. So with that, I'll just open it up if there's any questions. Yes?
How much does it weigh?
The Zephyr, as it is right now, weighs about 44 pounds, or the Z1. If you hear me call it Zephyr, that was our code name. Still getting used to the real name. Yeah, Wayne.
The PCIe slots that you have in there,
Yes.
you said 2 of them were used, one was for Bluetooth, one was wireless.
Right, there's 3. The question was with regard to the mini PCI Express slots and what are they being used for and how many free slots do we have. So we have 1 slot that's being used for a combination of Bluetooth and wireless. It's a combo card, and that leaves 2 slots open.
Now, is that something that would be accessible with a cable, like for the line of digitizing cards, like for Blackmagic or AJA that use a PCIe plug?
So your question is for one of those cards to get the cable outside.
Yeah.
There isn't a way to get that out right now. Yes, John?
Yeah, would I be correct in assuming that the PCI slots would accept standard PCI cards, or would they have to be custom cards specifically created for this device?
Yeah, there's a spec for mini PCI Express, and they're standard cards, much smaller than what you'd see in a desktop card. You can take a look when we finish here. It's about that long by about that wide.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Does
Yes.
it work with anything other than a Quadro?
Will it work with anything other than a Quadro? What we've tested it with are the Quadro that I listed. There's nothing to say that another MXM card would not work. It's a standard interface. It would have to be enclosed in custom blower, which is available from us. But to start with, again, we wanted to keep things simple, and that was our goal. Yeah, Ellie.
It does ship in the base configuration with the P3000 or not?
The starting at price?
Yep.
Starting at price, there's no add-in graphics. It uses the processor integrated graphics. Yes?
At that base configuration, is all the hardware there to add graphics later on, the discrete cards, or does it ship with just that part of the board like a new so that you can't add it later on?
Yeah, it will ship with a cover with no heatsink in it. That would have to be acquired later from HP. Okay. Yes?
There was only one display for that though? A connector?
Yes, one display port. It's
So two monitor.
bi-directional.
Yeah, but the internal monitor I can have one extra.
Right.
Because
That's
the
correct.
Quadro supports 3 monitors.
Up to 2. These would support up to 2. Yes.
On that bidirectional port, is there a special cable where that works only with HP displays, or how does that?
No, it's a standard display port cable, and we just have a switch inside that's software controlled, senses, and switches the direction, either as an output or an input. Yes?
So it's auto sensing. There's no way if you were feeding in to be able for the user on the front to select whether you're going with the internal or taking the external feed to that monitor.
There is a way for the user to select. There's a keystroke that will switch back and forth. I think it's Shift Control K.
Are these Quadro add-ins going to ship with the Z1 in April, and what are they priced at?
So the Z1 will ship with all 4 of those Quadro cards. Right now, we're not offering them as aftermarket options, and the pricing is still being worked. Yes?
Has HP made a public decision as to whether or not you're going to eventually support the Intel Thunderbolt standards for ports in the future?
So what we're doing is we've obviously been on top of that technology for some time. We're evaluating what our customer needs are and where we're moving into the future. There hasn't been any definite plans one way or the other on that, although we have, we're abreast of the technology for sure. Yes?
So as I understand, that's a standard graphics card in your custom housing, is that correct?
Yeah, standard MXM graphics card. The 4000 we use just like that in our laptops.
Okay.
So they're standard cards. Okay. Any other questions, comments? Yes?
I'm not clear about the graphics cards. You said they don't ship with one of the 4 different kinds of Quadros, but there's no aftermarket? So if you bought a base unit, you couldn't add one later?
Right at time when we ship in April,
Yeah.
there's not an aftermarket. That'll be added probably by the end of the summer, that
Okay.
capability.
Okay.
Yeah. One thing I'd like to comment about the simplicity, you know, there are certain things like aftermarket option graphics cards that aren't available at launch. A lot of this, you know, when you look at the development of this platform, we started with the question about 2 years ago this month. You know, should we do this? What does it mean? We didn't get the team together until the fall of 2010. So basically, from the time the team was told to say go, to go to where we're at today was about 18 months. 18 months with the innovation here, things that had never been done before. Just an amazing achievement by the engineering team to pull that off in such a short amount of time. You know, the cooling can't be underestimated, what it takes to cool this and the engineering that went into that. And everything meets the specs as with any of our other workstations. There's no compromises that have been made. Everything runs at full performance. There isn't anything that's overheating. So tremendous achievement there. Yes?
What is the thermal specification for the cost that CPU that heavy for this?
We can go all the way up to a E3 1280, which is 95 watts.
Well, I noticed you guys were using a glossy screen on the front there, and then,
Yes.
but you were saying that a lot of your customers might be using it in mobile environments where it's difficult to control the lighting.
Mm-hmm.
You'll get a lot of glare. What kind of options are you guys going to have for controlling glare?
Yeah, so the panel itself is the same panel we use on our professional displays, which has an anti-glare coating on it. The full glass is reflective, as you mentioned. We've gone through and experimented with a lot of different ways to make that more of a matte finish. What we're shipping with is this right now. There are solutions. Those solutions typically will cut down on the vibrance and vividness of the display. It won't be as bright, and so those are things we have to evaluate. There are solutions, though. Yes?
Notice the power supply you've got is 400 watts. Is that going to limit your upgrade capability? Say 2 years from purchase, you wanted to add a 6000 series card that was made specifically for the Z1?
Will it limit? It could potentially, but typically, as with any of our workstations, you know, you will have limitations with an older platform being able to accommodate one of the latest and greatest cards. But you know, 400 watts, that's a lot of power. For the foreseeable future, we'll be able to support the Quadro 4000 class and follow-on cards. Okay.
Mike, still got about 3 or 4 minutes, so you still have time for questions.
Okay. Any other questions?
Anything else you want to go?
I think that's it. Okay, thanks.